Welcome back to the Justice Factor. Xenophobic attacks have flared up around South Africa. More than 350 people have been killed in such attacks since 2008. What is the cause of these attacks? How do we ensure that they never happen again? My guests are University of Johannesburg Director of the School of Leadership, Dr. Sydney Mufamadi, and well-known commentator and author of Rediscovering South Africa, Professor Raymond Suttner. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. Professor Suttner, let me start with you. Immigration issues, xenophobia, it's a global phenomenon. How come in South Africa it's reached a point where we kill people and we have been doing so since 2008?
I don't think this is the only country where there have been killings. In the Ivory Coast, for example, after Houphouët-Boigny died, there was a civil war, and there had previously been a number of foreign migrant workers from Burkina Faso. Many of these were killed, as far as I can recall. There have also been, I'm not sure, but there's been toing and froing in Ghana and Nigeria earlier, and I'm sure there were some deaths at some point. But certainly in the Ivory Coast, there has been. So it's not unique, but it's on a scale that I don't think we have seen in other places.
What are the conditions that lead to this, to that tipping point being reached then? What are the conditions here at home that have led us to this situation? Well,
you know, I think that xenophobia is referred to as an attitude and a set of practices. And it's the practices that we are concerned about, not merely that someone is suspicious of foreign people, but that violence is committed. And I think it's got something to do with the overall environment, and in particular, how the authorities, what sort of signals the authorities send about xenophobic attacks. And I think the government, the state, has been extremely ambiguous over it. 353 people have been killed, only one successful prosecution. There are ambiguous statements repeatedly from a number of people in authority of a variety of types.
And Dr. Mufamadi, I'm not excluding you, I'm going to come to you, yes. But I just want to explore this point further, Professor Suttner. Are you saying that the state, in a sense, is behaving in a xenophobic manner, or is almost winking and saying, well, look, nothing's ever going to happen to you, so keep going, mate?
I think people have a sense of impunity, but I also think there are a number of other forces below the state who are organizing attacks on foreigners. For example, we've seen in the press various business organizations make threatening sounds about foreign traders. Nothing is done, even though they're acting illegally. So people have a sense that they can go and attack foreigners with impunity. So that is my belief, not only at the level of the presidency or the ministers, but at the level of the police particularly.
Dr. Mufamadi, you've heard what Professor Suttner had to say. Do you agree that over the past 7 years, particularly since the May 2008 attacks, that we have, in a sense, sort of allowed things to just keep going as they were, and therefore people think, I can get away with this?
Well, I think there are a few things that remain unsaid in the discussion about the problem which the country is going through. And I think for as long as these things are not brought into the equation, we are likely to respond wrongly to this problem. You see, for instance, an impression should not be gained or created that there is a popular rebellion against foreign nationals. You see, if you look at the communities of China townships, Alexander Township, and some other areas where there has been this problem, you find that people in the communities are expressing themselves against what is happening, which means that what you are dealing with are antisocial elements. Indeed, who, if they are allowed to do things like this with impunity, then we are in trouble. Professor Suttner and I will remember something that comes from our own lived experience in the 1980s, when we had organized street committees in the places of residence. There was no space for the sort of mischief that you are seeing today. It was only after a state of emergency was declared, community-based leaders were removed from the communities, that Tsotsi elements started to take advantage.
Can I interrupt you
vacuum.
then? Can I, in short, say what you're saying is that there is no leadership of communities at the moment or over the past 5 years. That is why the space is there for people to do these things.
No, sure. I'm saying, you see, if you've got strong community-based organizations, organizations that do not come across as hubs of infighting, where people are concentrating on things like fighting over leadership positions, where, unlike in the past, where even the trade union movement would be seen to be so focused on issues that affect communities beyond the factory floor. In this case, integrating issues of peace amongst the people into their day-to-day activities. Then you don't have the infrastructure, not only for responding at tipping points, but for ensuring that there are conditions on the ground which guarantee peace in the community.
I'm going to put you both on the spot. You both come from the mass democratic movement. You both come from an ANC background. What you're both saying is that the African National Congress in particular, which used to be a leader of society, is no longer a leader of this society, and therefore there is no one is in charge, and therefore whatever elements there are in the
this problem is not reducible just to one organization. I'm talking about the days of the United Democratic Front, where your faith-based organizations, community-based organizations, and indeed political organizations that will include your Azanian People's Organization, the Pan-Africanist Congress, all these organizations that have got an organized presence in Parliament, they must ask themselves, do we have an infrastructure on the ground which makes us as organizations fit for purpose, the purpose being ensuring that people are united?
Professor Suttner?
Yeah, you know, I think there are two different points. I was highlighting the level of the government. Dr. Mufamadi was pointing to the erosion of community solidarity, which was the basis for community organizations that would have stopped antisocial behavior. But where my emphasis would be different is it's not just antisocial behavior. The people who come and steal after there's been an attack are not necessarily the same people who instigate the attack. In Snake Park the other day and in Bram-Fisherville, there had been a meeting of traders. They then heard that some kid had been shot. They then apparently spontaneously went off, but they had petrol bombs pre-prepared and attacked them. Now, one of the points that is made by researchers is that these attacks require resources. The poorest of the poor who go and loot are not necessarily the people who instigate it.
I'm going to apologize to both of you. We ran out of time, but I want you 30 seconds each to give me what your view is about what needs to be done, short-term and long-term, very shortly, to make sure that we don't find ourselves in the situation that we're in today.
You know, the blame game is not going to take us anywhere. It's critically important that the people, government, not only the people of South Africa, but the people of Africa as a whole, do not allow, and their governments, do not allow themselves to lose perspective as to why we are facing this problem. We are facing this problem in large measure because there are many countries on the continent which are not at peace with themselves. They are facing a problem of depopulation. On the other end, there are countries that are having to cope with an exponential growth of people who are coming in, which then means that we need, as part of the African agenda, a united approach to dealing with these problems.
Professor
we need to emphasize that we have now got a democratic constitution and that all people, no matter what their origins are, should have the right to walk in peace around the streets and lanes of this country. We need to enforce that, and we need to understand that an attack on people of foreign origins is actually an attack on our freedom, which is meant to be universal, indivisible, and applicable to all. And that needs to be enforced from the top to the bottom.
Professor Suttner, thanks so much. Dr. Mufamadi, thanks so much, both of you, for coming. After the break, our winner and loser of the week.